Good evening. At this time, I'd like to call to order the Carver Conservation Commission's meeting for Wednesday, June 1st, 2022. According to our agenda, the first three items on the agenda are requests for certificate of completion on three projects, and we have not.
I spoke to Matt from Borrego, and they're going to be on the 15th, so we're going to do the site visits the morning of the 15th.
Okay.
Well, you won't be here, but
I won't be here.
But I'll send out a thing. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So those three are continued in a sense to our next meeting.
Yeah, because we need to do site visits.
All right. Next up is tree cutting on 3 Johns Pond.
9:30.
Hi. How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you tonight?
Good, thank you.
Darlene Ferrante, 3 Johns Pond Road.
We have microphones working?
Yep. Just pull a little closer.
Is that better?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I read the minutes from the last meeting. I was not here, but that was just a discussion, as is this. And I believe that it's just an invitation to come in and discuss the trees that you took down and the reasons why, and why we weren't notified.
At the last meeting, Mr. Chairman, I asked this committee to inform me of the date when the tree cuttings were observed by this committee, and I was hoping that I could get an answer to that question so that I can properly answer.
Your question is when the tree cutting,
When we observed it?
when it was observed, I guess, according to the minutes. I was not here at the last meeting. The minutes say that when a site visit was done at 5 Johns Pond.
I can't remember the exact date of it. I
Which,
can't remember the exact date of the site visit, but we did a couple of site visits at 5 Johns Pond.
right.
And I believe it was a site visit before the last time we had it on the agenda.
All right.
Remember it was on the agenda, and then but we didn't discuss it.
I went to 5 Johns Pond for the alpacas.
Yeah, no, this was
Before the
way
before
in the
that?
beginning. Yes, yeah,
Okay.
when we went out for the wall and all the other stuff, and we went over
Okay.
to that side of the property to see where the brush had been dumped and stuff.
Okay.
So that was when we saw it.
All right.
But
And
I don't know the exact date. I never took the date on it.
okay.
So you don't know the exact date. That sounds like we're firm on that. Could I be informed of who saw it, please?
Well,
Mr. Chairman, we went through this the last time. Excuse me. We went through this the last time. We're going back to being the Inquisition again. We were at your house, next door to your house at 5 Johns Pond Road, probably 3 or 4 months ago. Everybody was there. We noticed the trees had been cut then. When you came in for the hearing for 5 Johns Pond, I asked, what's going on with the trees in your backyard? And again, you stated, this is not on the agenda. So we didn't discuss it. It never got put back on for a discussion. We then issued the variance. You filed the appeal. We did another site visit with the DEP, and we noticed again that there are trees been cut in your backyard. There's, according to Dan, there's a plastic pipe going down your stairs, and brush has been cleared. And the purpose of this discussion this evening is related to those items, not asking us questions. We're asking you questions. Mr. Chairman.
It was obviously a member or members of the Conservation Commission who noticed this. And if one noticed it first and brought it to the attention of the others who were at 5 Johns Pond that day, then we all saw it. So, no, the answer to your question, who saw it, the commission did. That's.
How does it end up, sorry, this is Dominic, how does it end up on the agenda without us even being notified as an issue?
It gets
The same
put.
question as the last time.
It gets put. If you look at agenda.
Discussion. We don't have to notify you. This is a board discussion. We're giving you the courtesy of explaining. But the last time it was put on for discussion, we are under no obligation to notify you. We were gonna have a discussion among the board to discuss 3 Johns Pond, just like we had a discussion about 5 Johns Pond, just like we've had a discussion about the woodlot that's down on Wareham Street. And then we all talk about it. If Brooke's driven by, then she makes a statement about what's going on, and then we decide as a board, should we send you a letter and invite you to come in?
Yeah,
But that's how that all happens.
That's the process. Complaints or observations are brought to the attention of Brooke or to the commission. We then, in turn, as a group in a public forum, discuss what the complaint is and make a decision as to what our next steps would be. So in this particular case, it is still a discussion. You're here tonight, so we'd like to get answers from you. If, you know, it's not a public hearing. It's not something that it's not listed as a public hearing item because there's no vote that needs to be taken on it.
It's still into discussion.
Yes, it's still a discussion, but if you would like to address the issue that the Conservation Commission noticed while at the abutting property to yours regarding the trees, now's an opportunity that you can do that. If you'd like, we can go back and we can look at every time we were at 5 Johns Pond and try to narrow it down to which time we saw it. But, you know,
This was on the agenda as a continued hearing on January 19th,
5 Johns Pond was?
5 Johns Pond, January 5th.
it was on later than that, too. I believe.
Oh, yeah, much later.
Yeah, yeah, it went on for a while.
So,
It
I
continued.
mean, I know I've been there
We continued it a few.
5 or 6
yeah,
times.
Yeah,
That's right.
And which time exactly I saw the trees on your property, I can't tell you. It was within the last year and a half.
At least because this
Yeah.
is January 5th, and 5 Johns Pond's on this agenda. So it's
Right.
probably December without going through the minutes. That's all public record, by the way. That's all on the website. If you go to the Carver website, you look at the Conservation Commission,
Just ask the question.
you can see the agenda and you can see
Just
all the
ask
minutes.
question.
No, but all the minutes are there, so you'd see the minutes of the hearing, and I'm willing to bet, Ashley's exceptionally good at this, I'm willing to bet that there'd be the comment in there that I asked about the tree cutting and was told that it's not on the agenda. Not only that, it's also on YouTube.
Right.
I think it's a fair question for me to ask this committee when you noticed it, who noticed it specifically, and to be able to respond properly to what was observed. So
All right, it
it's-
was me. I noticed it.
Okay,
What do you have to say?
okay, terrific.
It wasn't, but if you want a name, I'm going to say me.
Go ahead, Bill.
Okay.
I don't know,
So
I don't know what
hypothetically-
difference it makes, who saw it. The commission is there as a commission. Someone on the commission saw it.
It's a concern because the site visit that you were performing was at 5 Johns Pond Road, and you had a quorum of committee members that were convening and discussing my property, and that is subject to a public announcement. Is it not, Mr. Chairman?
We did not reach a decision at that
We
meeting.
didn't discuss your property at that meeting.
We have the right as a commission to go on site visits and notice and make a comment on anything that we notice at the time. If we had seen something at 5 Johns Pond that was different than what we had seen before, we would have had the right to mention it that right there and then. So if someone looks across the fence and sees something on the adjoining property, whether it's 3 Johns Pond or 7 Johns Pond, there is a right of the commission to say, hey, look at that. That doesn't look right.
Okay.
So that, I mean, that's part of what we do. We don't have to hold it in and then come back to a meeting and say, hey, guess what? This is a situation where we're all standing there and someone can say, look, that looks like it's not right. So that the other members can see it and we don't have to go back again and have everybody else look at it.
So, Mr. Chairman, so we're 10 minutes into this meeting, And all that's happened so far is we go back to like the last meeting, we're being asked the questions.
All right, and we're given answers.
So are we going to get an answer, or are we going to just waste everybody else's time tonight while you ask for another continuance? You're going to tell us how the trees got cut and why the Conservation Commission was not notified. If you notice on tonight's agenda, there are 2 more requests to cut trees at 2 other addresses. So this is a common occurrence. You chose not to do that. We're trying to figure out why. You're trying to turn this into a retaliatory action from 5 Johns Pond Road. That's where you're trying to go with this, and that's not the case at all. They have not said
Mr.
one
Chairman,
word
can
about your
can I respond to that comment that was just made? May I please respond to that comment?
You may respond.
Thank you. I'd like to respond to you directly. The accusations that are being made here and the tone of voice is coming across as harassment. And it's very difficult for me to have an open discussion with you while I'm being intimidated and bullied by the other committee member.
There's the magic words right there.
All right.
So I'd like to answer your questions, and I'd like to address them to you directly, if that's...
Well, you're addressing the board, but please go ahead. I'm listening.
Okay. All right, terrific. Thank you. My concern and my reason for asking all of these questions is because if you're convening as a group and discussing 3 Johns Pond Road, not the subject of the site visit that you had publicly announced, then that is a violation of open meeting laws. Okay, that's number 1. Number 2, we were not formally asked to come to and address this committee until today. It was brought up by your colleague in one of the prior meetings, and it is documented in the minutes. And it was brought up, it was on this committee's agenda 2 weeks ago. And the day before that meeting, we were all attending a site visit together for the DEP appeal that was filed by me. And no one that attended that site visit had the courtesy to tell me that my property was part of the agenda.
Well, that is probably an oversight. We don't have any responsibility to alert you to this because it was, as Mr. Germain said, this was a discussion among the board to see what our next steps would be. And our next steps would have been to have you come in and explain why you cut the trees and why you needed to cut the trees, how many you cut, when they were cut, and why you did not come to us for permission first, since they are within our jurisdiction. So, that I wasn't at that DEP meeting the day before, so I don't know why, but it wasn't the responsibility of anybody on the board or the conservation agent to notify you that. It was on the agenda, which was published on the town website, and it was under discussions. It was not under a hearing. So it's really incumbent upon the people who are, who have been aware that there's a discussion going on about their property to keep an eye on this. Had it been a hearing, you would have been notified to be there. So, that's really all I can say. The questions that we still have are why, when, how many, and why weren't we notified? That is the procedure that has to happen. And as Mr. Germain said, 6 Brockton Avenue, which is on our agenda for request to cut trees, they came to us first before they cut any trees. 40 South Main Street, the same thing.
Okay.
They followed the rules. So the question really is, why did not you follow the rules?
Mr. Chairman, at that site visit with 5 Johns Pond, we were there with the DEP. The homeowner for 5 Johns Pond allowed the DEP and the commission on the property
And let's let the record be formalized that it was Mr. Germain who suggested to the homeowner that he not allow us on the property to participate in that site visit.
Excuse me,
All right,
that is not correct.
That's irrelevant.
It's not correct.
It's irrelevant.
No, it's very relevant because it plays to this entire proceeding here, which is retaliatory. So he used the word first, I'll use it now to say that this is absolutely an act of retaliation because I reported a violation of the Wetlands Protection Act. It was reported, there were multiple site visits. A decision was made by this committee, which the DEP is now investigating.
Did you cut trees within 100 foot of John's Pond on your property?
I had storm damage from the October 26th and 27th storm, the storm with the 65-mile-an-hour winds sustained, the storm that knocked out power in this town for 3 days. I had dangerous trees on my property that needed to be removed because they were a danger to people and my property.
And as if you
And
state...
as a homeowner, I have a right to remove those trees. I left the stumps in the ground, sir, so that it would be the appropriate approach to removing dangerous trees. You saw the stumps, I believe. This committee, whoever saw it, no one can seem to tell me who, but someone saw
Dan
those
said he
stumps.
saw 5, but he's not here.
That's unfortunate.
That's what he said.
I'm telling you that that's what happened. This,
All right.
that what you witnessed is removal of dangerous and storm damaged trees.
And I would assume that 40 South Main Street and 6 Brockton Avenue are removing trees for the same reason, and they've come to us first before doing it. So the question is, we're here tonight to discuss trees that were taken down within 100 feet of John's Pond. We're not here to talk about retaliation. We're not here to talk about 5 John's Pond Road. We're here to talk about trees that you took down without talking to conservation first, which is not right.
It's within my right to remove dangerous trees, sir.
With permission of the Conservation Commission, if it's within 100 feet of a body of water or a wetlands. Yes, it is your right. And we act quickly. If you had come to us on November 1st and said, I have trees we have to cut down, they would be down by November 15th. We would have come out there, we would have looked, we would have said, yes, you're probably right, take them down. And that's what's probably going to happen on 40 South Main Street and 6 Brockton Avenue.
You know, the unfortunate thing is you can't tell me when you saw the trees were cut because, you know.
Sometime after October 28th.
I have all my dates and I have all my records. This committee can tell me that we don't have dates.
Have to.
We don't have dates. We don't have records. We don't know when the site visits occurred.
That's right. We don't have to tell you when we saw them. We saw them on one of our site visits.
Okay.
And someone brought it to the attention of the rest of the board who was there at the time and said, look, there's something over there, which
understood.
is not an open meeting law violation because we did not render a decision at that site visit. We made an observation and brought it back here and mentioned it at our next meeting. So if you want to try open law meeting, have at it. All right?
We haven't trespassed on your property, we haven't accessed your property. We were next door, we saw it. Dan said he saw 5 stumps, I only saw a couple, so I don't know what Dan was looking at or what angle he was looking at. I also see there's a lot of clearing of the brush. There's a nice view of the pond. Don't get me wrong, it's a nice pond. I think it'd be great to have a view of the pond. But it requires a phone call. It requires an inquiry. It doesn't require you do whatever you feel like doing because it's your pond. You ask a question. That's all. Nobody's angry with you. Nobody's upset about anything. None of this was discussed with you at the site visit because it was DEP we were discussing stuff with. And we didn't even talk to you or your husband that day. Not one member of this committee that was there, Jim Nowen, myself, Dave, Brooke, nobody spoke with either one of you that day at the site visit. When I left, your husband was mowing the grass. So we never spoke to either one of you. We were on no obligation to tell you, by the way, tomorrow night this is on the agenda, because you really weren't on the agenda. A discussion was on the agenda. And if this board had decided that we'd like to have some more answers to the questions, you would have gotten a letter asking you politely, could you come in at the next meeting and explain what's going on over there?
So I don't know what next steps are. We had storm damage. We're not educated in conservation law. And prior to the reporting of the issue next door, which was simply a concern, it's been blown out of proportion. We've not removed vegetation from the shore, and we cleaned up storm issues. There's been virtually 100 trees that have dropped in that neighborhood.
There's no doubt in my mind, you're absolutely correct.
And I'm sure that none of our neighbors, and it doesn't matter, have come to you about that.
Oh, I wouldn't be too sure about that.
No.
We had all the residents on Shaw Road, all them little
I'm
condos.
talking about John's Pond.
Yeah, well, I don't know what other trees have been taken down.
Well,
And if
other
somebody saw a
trees
tree
taken
come down
down.
on John's Pond, they'd have the right to call the Conservation Commission and say, hey, what the hell's going on at 27 John's Pond? How come they're cutting trees in their backyard? Then Brooke would go down there and say, what are you doing? And we'd have the same exact discussion with that person.
Right. But I guess we're having that discussion now, so. what's
So
the next steps?
it's no big deal.
Right. okay.
There's protocol, that's all there is. That's all it simply is.
If you've, by some chance, watched the Conservation Commission meetings over the last 3 or 4 years on, just the way we conduct our business, the one primary thing that we look for is precedence. We want to make sure that the rules that are set up here in Carver are okay. So if we were to let what you did, if we were to ignore it, then all your neighbors on John's Pond, and everyone on Cooper's Pond, and everyone on Vaughn's Pond, and everyone on Sampson's Pond would say, we can do it too.
That's right.
And that's what we're trying to avoid.
And for the record, we've never said no.
Yeah.
Honestly and truly, I mean, we've.
Well, we
like, I
said
go
no.
back-
We said no once, because the guy on Sampson's Pond who was worried the tree was going to fall on his boat.
Oh, well, that's different. But
Yeah,
Well,
but we said no to maybe one tree and then
Yeah,
okay to
and
the
then
other ones.
okay to a
and
bunch
near
of
the
them. If
house,
it's gonna cause damage to the property or hurt the house, like I said, I mentioned Shaw Road, those little condos. There's pine trees that are this big around, and they're literally 3 feet off the house. So they came in and asked, can we get some of these out of here? Dave Robertson did the same thing.
Yep.
And then
He's
near
got
the
huge
wires.
pine trees he's afraid are gonna fall on his, one did, by the way, got the neighbor's house.
Yeah, and then near the
Got the
wires
garage.
usually.
So, we've never said no. It's just, Sabri's 100% right. It's just so that the next person doesn't sit back and do whatever they want, and then all of a sudden, you just throw all the conservation laws
You
out the
just
window.
can't ignore it.
You just can't ignore it, that's all. That's all this is, we just can't ignore it.
Well, we've never taken any trees down that are damaged, so that's my response.
I'm sorry?
No, didn't take any down?
I'm sorry? I didn't hear what you said.
I said we've never taken any trees down that weren't damaged.
That weren't damaged, yeah.
They broke and fell over, and you took what was remaining of them?
Or hanging or leaning.
Any, without getting angry, any pictures? Did you take any,
Of course.
well,
I'm not, do we need to go there?
what do you want to do with this, Mr. Chairman?
They're here, you told them they need to do.
I think that all I will ask you to do is that the next time we have a windstorm and more trees come down or are a threat, just come to us first. We get out there. We do site visits every 2 weeks. If it's an emergency, we can be out there within a couple of days and put it on the agenda for our next meeting. We just want to make sure that everybody in town knows that this is the procedure. And, as Mr. Germain said, we don't say no if it's a danger, and we're pretty flexible and pretty lenient in what we consider to be a danger to a home or to a person. So if this happens again, and I hope it doesn't, I had 11 trees down on my property, but thankfully they were outside of the wetlands and they all fell all the way to the ground. So and they weren't close to the house. So I could wait until I had time to chop them up. But I know that that was a bad storm, and Carver was,
But honestly and truly, even at the last hearing, when it was on for a discussion, if you brought in a picture and said, well, this is why I took them down, here's a picture of what it looked like after the storm, it would have been a closed issue right then and there. It would have been done. It would have been like, okay, I get it.
right.
So
And
it didn't
generally,
ever have to get like this. It just could have been very simple. This is why we did what we did. This is the first time I'm hearing about snowstorms and storm damage. If you'd said that the last time, you wouldn't be here tonight, because it would have gone away last time, honestly and truly.
and again, I just want to reiterate that the first time something appears on our agenda under discussions, it's basically us discussing what needs to be discussed in a public forum, so we eliminate the potential for open meeting law violation. We have an observation, we don't discuss it at the site visit, or Brooke doesn't let us know about it ahead of time. If she gets a phone call about something, she puts it on the agenda, we come here and discuss it in an open, public, televised forum, which is the way we need to do it. Does that satisfy you?
Thank you for explaining that. So this matter's closed?
Yep.
Until the next storm.
And because it's a
Thank you.
discussion, there's no need of a vote, there's no paperwork, there's just,
Okay.
Thank you.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Okay. Next up, conservation restrictions for the
I
Griffith.
think that was from last time.
Oh, okay, you just
Yeah.
left it
That
on.
was
I
when,
thought I saw it. I saw it on the.
Alan Decker came in and,
Yeah.
why is it still on here?
I don't, didn't get, yeah, all right.
Okay. Request to cut trees, 40 South Main Street.
Yeah, the homeowner had sent me pictures, with arrows pointing at all the trees. And you and I had been out there, like, prior
Yes.
to. And they have some big white pines, as usual, that are a couple near the house, a couple near the wires, and then one, I think, maybe near the abutting property. I'm trying to think, isn't something?
Well, Alan was saying before, this 40 South Main Street is my brother-in-law,
Right.
who lives next door to the Robertsons.
Oh, it was Dave,
Oh,
yes.
okay.
So this is the line
Yes.
of trees that goes between
Yeah.
their
We
properties.
looked at those,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
2 years
you and
ago.
I had looked
But
at
these-
prior to, but.
Right,
Yeah.
but the ones that were on Dave's property, we said okey dokey.
yeah?
Mm-hmm.
These are trees that are on my brother-in-law's
Didn't
property.
he lose one? It hit the house?
No, Dave lost one that hit the garage.
I thought he lost one next door that hit the house.
And
You're
you-
gonna need a crane.
Oh,
that's
no,
all
no,
it
that
does.
was 2 doors over. That
Oh,
was the large house in the condos.
Yeah, yeah,
But did your
Oh.
brother-in-law have one that went down too, I thought,
I thought he did.
prior to?
No,
you-
his went down and it went across the fence and hit
Oh,
inside the
okay.
condos.
Yeah. But anyway, so I went out and looked at them, I agree.
So that needs a crane.
They need to go.
Well, yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah, they're getting a crane. They're getting
Yeah.
a crane guy. And it's, it's not only a threat to my brother-in-law's house, but to the Robertsons too,
Right.
depending on the direction of the wind.
Right.
But these
Right.
just happened, the trunks have,
Yeah.
trunks happen to be on
Yeah.
my brother-in-law's property, so it's his
And it's a common
dime.
occurrence now
And
with the
just-
white pines.
Just so everybody knows, that the vast majority of these pine trees that are coming down, they're breaking 10 and 12 feet up from the base. It might have happened during the storm for you. These trees are suffering from red rot, but typically a pine tree only lasts about 75 years. These tall, aged pines in this town are in the 90s now. So it's not uncommon in a good windstorm to have them snapping like twigs, because they're getting to that point where they're gonna break. And they're not coming up the root ball and all, they're breaking 10, 12, 15 feet up from the ground.
Yeah, they're snapping.
They're snapping. And to look at the tree from the outside before it breaks, it looks great. Right until it breaks. And then, because there's no way to figure out it's the next one to go.
And especially if you're on a pond and it's open.
Sure.
You have the wind.
And then you got the
Yeah.
pines with the snow and the heavy snow, it'll knock over anything.
That
So-
October storm was a northeast wind, and you are on the southwest corner of the pond, so you had the full force across the water.
Right.
I'm on the north side of Sampson, so I didn't get the full force, but I've had southern winds.
Yeah.
But, I look at Shirtlift Park here, that's gonna look very different in 15 years, because
Yeah.
all those trees are at the end of their life.
Yeah,
I
you
don't
can
even
tell.
give 'em 10.
Yeah.
Yeah, so,
That's the reason we took down all the ones at the library. That was 2 years ago now.
yeah, at least.
That we had all those big, beautiful trees that were there, and everybody got all upset because they got cut down, because we didn't want them to fall down and hit the library.
Okay, so
Okay.
you gave them an okay to go ahead.
Yep.
Okay.
What about 6 Brockton?
6 Brockton?
6 Brockton, I went and met with John Skagg.
Mhm.
These people, they actually live on, they actually own the lot across Brockton Ave from where their house is. It's just a vacant lot. And there's, the prior owner had left tons of brush and all kinds of stuff, there. So they wanted to clean that up, which I didn't see was an issue. And then John had marked a couple of trees that were dead, that they just
Where is it in relationship to any water or wetlands?
Where's the wetland?
The pond is across, okay, if you look at this, I don't even know, what pond is that? Oh, it's, Fresh, is it Fresh Meadow on up Brockton Ave? Off of Circuit Street? So anyway, the house is on that side, but they own that lot there, so there
And
are a
this is
couple
the
of trees.
wetlands?
Yeah, that's the, is it Fresh Pond? On that end? I think it's Fresh Pond.
Okay.
But there are a couple, and John had
Come over
marked
and
them.
join us, Dave. You
Yeah,
don't have to sit over in the
sit
corner
over
by
here.
yourself now.
Well, my name's not over here.
That's all right. We
You can move
that.
it.
You can be Jim
for
for
now.
now.
I'll be Jim for
Move your hand,
All right, so
Yeah,
that
same
looked fine.
thing. And I trust John.
Yes,
John does not
John's
like to
good.
cut trees unless he feels like there are.
You're all right with it? I'm all right with it.
Yeah, I'm fine with it too.
Okay. We'll do the minutes after.
Okay, well, yeah, we'll do the minutes afterwards. Okay, so, new hearings. Lot 3, Ricketts Pond Drive. We don't have a DEP number yet?
Nope, we don't.
Okay. Notice is hereby given in accordance with the Massachusetts Wetlands Protection Act, MGL, Chapter 131, Section 40, and the Carver Wetlands Protection Bylaw, that a public hearing will be held at 7:00 PM on Wednesday, June 1st, 2022, in Meeting Room 1 at the Carver Town Hall to hear the notice of intent submitted on behalf of Bridgestone Development Incorporated for the proposed construction of 2 commercial buildings with associated driveways, parking, closed drainage system, septic system, grading, and landscaping. Portions of the project are within the 100-foot buffer to Ricketts Pond and the associated bordering vegetated wetland. The project is located at Ricketts Pond Drive off Spring Street, Carver, Massachusetts, map 32, lot 1-3. All interested parties are invited to attend.
I have a board here. I'm just gonna set it up over here. Let me know if there's a better spot.
Yeah, that's all right.
That's good.
Where's the camera? The camera's over there.
Camera's over there.
Oh, there's 2 cameras. Okay, that's fine. It's Cooper's Pond.
It's Cooper's, yeah. Oh, no, it's right.
Couldn't stand
Oh,
it,
Cooper's,
could
I'm sorry.
No, I haven't.
You just couldn't stand it.
There's so many damn ponds in this town. I lose track of them.
Yeah,
And those streets are so weird down near Brockton Ave and Circuit Ave.
yeah.
He owns them all.
Okay.
All right. So good evening, everyone. My name is Eric Shoemaker. I'm a project engineer with McKenzie Engineering Group. We designed the civil site layout plans for this property as well as surveyed the lot. So I'm here representing our client, Bridgestone Development Incorporated. I'm gonna just give some background about the site and go into the site plans. So the site's located at Lot 3 of the Ricketts Pond Definitive Subdivision in Carver. That's Assessor's Map 32, Lot 1-3. So it's comprised of about 170,000 square feet or 3.91 acres. The site's located in the Spring Street Innovation Zoning District. It's bordered by Ricketts Pond to the east, Route 44 to the northwest, and undeveloped woodlands to the north, and Spring Street to the south. Currently, there's a mining and earth removal operation going on the locus of the subdivision. So the Ricketts Pond Definitive Subdivision was approved by the Carver Planning Board in April of 2019. So we are currently in the site plan review process for lots 1 and 2 with the Carver Planning Board. We submitted lot 3. I think that meeting is coming up in 2 weeks. So we're here to discuss the notice of intent for lot 3. So let's point it out the map here. This Lot 3. Form A lot was recently approved by the commission as well.
Yep.
So the topography ranges, but generally just slopes to the east towards the pond. Prior to the development of the site, the earth and gravel removal will leave the grading about 1 foot below the proposed grades on the site plan. So that's how we're planning to tie into the plans shown. The site's located in FEMA Zone X, and it's not located in a DEP Zone 2. We are located within the Carver Water Resource Protection District. The bordering vegetated wetlands associated with that Ricketts Pond were flagged by Environmental Consulting and Restoration, LLC, on February 6th of 2018, and an ORAD approving the limit of bordering vegetated wetlands was issued in July of 2018. The initial notice of intent for the subdivision roadway and infiltration basins and their associated grading was dated April 12th, 2019, and an order of conditions for that was issued by the board in May of 2019. So, moving on to the site plan. So this sheet here, C1, is the site layout plan. It just shows the proposed conditions of the site, such as the buildings, setback, and surface treatments. The proposed development will consist of two 7,452 square foot commercial buildings with bituminous concrete parking areas, 24-foot wide access drives, related site infrastructure such as utilities, closed drainage system, and there'll be a single septic system which both buildings will tie into due to that natural sand out there. Portion of the proposed bituminous concrete parking area will be located within the 100-foot buffer to bordering vegetated wetlands. That's why we're here in front of you today. We kept both buildings out of that 100-foot buffer. And it's just worth noting that this plan, the orientation of the parking lots as well as the pavement limits, has not changed since that initial subdivision we submitted to the planning board. So the bituminous concrete parking area will consist of 24 on-site parking spaces with 2 handicap accessible spots with van accessible aisles. The 24-foot wide access drives will wrap around each building to allow access to the loading bays to the rear, and there'll be 1-foot wide Cape Cod berms at the limits of the parking area on all sides. So loading bays, like I said, are provided in the rear, and I think these buildings will consist of about 25% office and the rest being warehouse. A 5-foot wide cement concrete sidewalk is provided along the front of the building as well. And if anyone's curious, the land usage tables on, I'd say it's to the left side of the plan, really just show the requirements of that Spring Street Innovation Zoning District versus what we have proposed. And you'll see we're compliant with all respects to the Carver zoning bylaw. Landscape buffers will be provided on the rear side and in those front islands. I think the planning board usually asks us to expand upon a landscaping plan. I'm doing that for the lots 1 and 2 across the street right now. So we're trying to use pollinator species on those given to us by Thomas Bott, and just really provide a nice landscape buffer around the lot to break up the parking area. Just moving on to sheet C2, which is grading and drainage. So our goal in designing this drainage system was to create a drainage model that complied with all the local and state stormwater management regulations, as well as attenuate the 2, 10, 25, and 100-year storm events. So the Drainage for this lot will consist of a closed drainage system with catch basins and drain manholes. That's going to direct stormwater to the south towards the proposed infiltration basin. A portion of that basin is located on the site, and as I mentioned earlier, the basin and the roadway were approved in that initial notice of intent filed with the commission. So just for the whole subdivision as a whole, Lot 4, which is directly north of our lot, the stormwater just flows through that easement and will end up in that basin.
Eric, would it make it easy for you to know that all of us were on this site today? We saw this?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, just, because, just so you know, we've seen all of this.
Yeah.
So we're all familiar with what's going on. We had a full set of plans, but please, go ahead. I just want to make it easy on you, so.
Oh,
Yeah.
thank you, appreciate it. So just really to note, as we've been going through the designs of these singular lots, we've been updating the impervious calculations and then rerunning our drainage model. And so right now that basin directly south of our lot floods to about elevation 138, which is 2 feet below the top of the berm. So we're very much in excess of that freeboard requirement, which is 1 feet for Massachusetts Stormwater Handbook. Just the only other things to note, the utilities which are proposed are underground electric telephone cable. So that's extending off of Ricketts Pond Drive. Each building will be serviced by a 1,000-gallon propane tank with underground gas, and a potable well will be located to the rear of the lot, which will service each building. So with that, that concludes the introduction, the plans. I can answer any
It's
questions.
going to require a
Commissioner may
variance
have.
because the well is over the 65.
Yeah.
So I'm going to give you an opportunity, give you an option. In full disclosure, I contract haul out of this very site. I contract for SLT. I have absolutely no connection with the developer on these two lots. I don't know who it is. I've never worked for the guy. There's no financial interest in it. But everybody knows that I haul material out of these lots. This well's going to require a variance. There needs to be 3 people saying yes for a variance. I'm not comfortable voting on that variance, given my close relation with this site. We would need a 3rd member, which would be the 4th member. So
If we made a revision and that well was moved, let's say to the left of the plan out of that
it's got to
65.
come out of the 65.
Yeah. If we can move it out of the 65, there'll be no variance.
I don't have a problem voting with the board, because I think you know that I'm objective enough. I don't have a problem voting with the board on a simple approval. I just don't want to, I don't think it's fair that I vote for a variance. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I understand, and I can take that back to the team.
And
we
the
can
worst that
discuss.
happens is it's 2 weeks from now when we have a larger board and we can take it up then. So it's up to you whether you want to move the well, perhaps a continuance and see if they want to move the well or not.
Well, we have to continue, we don't have a file number anyway.
We don't have a file number.
Yeah.
And
And typically a well, I mean, you're not gonna say no, I mean, that's one thing that
Right.
you always give a variance for.
I get it, but-
Because it's a well,
but-
yeah.
But the
I've been
NOI
on
would
this site
have to
for
be
3.5
amended as
years.
well, correct?
What's that?
The NOI would have to be amended to include a variance now? Because it doesn't.
Yeah, it would have to include a variance for the well.
Yeah, because right now it's just the, the
I
pavement in the
just happened
100
to see
foot.
it today.
Right, I know, I didn't notice it.
Well, let's let them continue
Okay.
and get as far, because I have another question regarding a potential addition to the variance, and it has to do with grading within the 65. And I don't know if that's something that was accomplished in the initial approval of the project as a whole.
I think we did it with the basin.
We did it with the
Right,
basin,
but
We
they're-
allowed the
they're-
grading.
but that was a stormwater
Yes,
basin. which is a
yes,
little
I
different.
understand that, but there's grading that's going to be necessary behind the parking lot, I believe.
Correct.
And that's going to be especially right where the parking lot meets,
Meets the 65.
meets the 65. If they're grading behind that, that has to be included in a variance as
Right, where
well.
the
Yeah.
manhole is, yeah.
So we may have to go. So let's hear everything, so
Yep.
at least we have it.
So I just touched on the utilities, and that's all I have for the plans. I can answer any questions, but I'd just like to add that the grading associated with really that whole downslope was used to establish the basin, which was already approved in that initial notice of intent.
Yes, I understand that, but what we saw today, there is a knoll that has trees on it that's going to have to be removed.
Okay.
And the grading right behind the edge of your parking area. There are two places, one that looks to be about 40 feet, 30 to 40 feet, that it's right on it. So obviously, there's going to be some alteration to the terrain
Yeah.
encroaching into the 65 feet. So that's going to be part of the variance as well. So,
Yeah, it'll still be no touch, but it will be, you'll be allowed to grade the area so that it'll seed.
yes, but it has to, they need to get a variance to
Yeah,
do that.
it's still no impervious like the bylaw says, but it's.
Right,
it's still-
I'm not doubting that they'll do it the right way, but it does have to be included as a variance, so
Yeah.
someone doesn't come back and, at a later time and says, hey,
Yeah,
this needed a variance and
Right.
there's not one there.
right.
So,
I just noticed it with the well, so.
yeah, I just want to make sure that we have
I didn't notice that.
everything tidied up here before we get too far. All right, Dave, do you have any questions, concerns?
Right now, no, thank you.
Okay. As Mr. Jermaine said, we were out there today, and we saw it. It's pretty cut and dried what they're doing. This was part of the plan all along. So we just, we have to just make sure that when we come back on the continuance, that if any of the other members have a question, that
Yeah.
maybe
Sure,
we.
we put it on
So
the
we put on
agenda
for-
so that it's applying for variance also.
Yeah, actually, what you could do, Eric, is maybe we could just add a letter saying, requesting the variance, just to make it official,
Yeah.
and that way it'll be, you know what I mean? That
Right.
way you'll have that to vote on too.
Now, actually, if they want to move the well over out of the 65,
But then there's still the
But you still
grading.
have the grading. You still need a variance. I don't, we've never had an
Right.
issue with a well being in the 65.
no, we haven't. As a
So there's
matter-
no, if that's the best place for them to have the well,
Right,
I don't see any reason to move
yeah.
it.
And
Yeah.
even grading,
Right.
we've allowed grading in the 65.
We approved a well
It's not-
3 feet off of Crystal Lake.
Yeah.
Yes, we did.
Literally.
Yeah.
Well, there's nowhere
The
else to
lake
go.
was here and the well was.
There was
Right, so
nowhere else to
I
go.
wouldn't concern yourself with moving the well, just making sure that we have the right
Yeah.
paperwork to allow it.
Yeah,
Got it. Thank you. I'll work with you, Brooke, and follow up and just
Okay.
get whatever you need.
yeah.
Yeah. This is a public hearing, even though we're going to continue it. Are there any residents here that want to say anything? Yes.
I'm just wondering about.
Could you please sign in and?
I didn't know.
Can you please sign in and go up to the microphone so our vast television audience can hear you?
The millions that watch.
Yeah, I'm just wondering about the placement of the propane tank. When I looked at the plans, it looked like it's going to be within that, within this 65 feet.
No, they're within the 100.
They're, if you look here, if you
Well, I
want.
can't see it.
You
No,
come around and look at it. The green dotted line is the 100-foot,
The red line 65.
and the red line is a 65. Those two little bump outs,
Isn't this where the?
yes,
Yes.
yeah,
but
and
that's-
it's between the 65 and the 100. So it's not within the 65 feet to the pond. It's within It's between the red line, dotted line and the green dotted line.
Okay, I think I meant to say within the 100 feet.
Yes, it is between,
Yes.
the-
This is
within the
within-
100
So
feet.
that concerns me a little bit. And it looks like this one also over here.
Yes, they both are. They're both within the 100 feet.
Well, that one could be flipped onto the other side and get it out of the 100.
It could be.
And then we'd only have one to do. Why is there a consent? I'm just curious.
Well, I don't know much about these things, but I'm wondering about leakage and that sort of thing happening.
These gonna be above ground?
Yes, above ground tanks.
Okay.
These are propane, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I have propane in my yard, and I haven't had a leak, but I
Yeah,
don't know if that
typically
happens.
doesn't.
Yeah, that,
Well, it's if it leaks, it's going to be.
yeah, usually there's an explosion.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, we'll go into the atmosphere, it won't really, the liquid.
It ends up in the, it
won't go
really,
into
it ends up in the air, and if you drive down to South Carver
go
and you
into
see
the
Robies, and you go uptown, you see Robies, they got that big tank. They really, they're built pretty stout.
Yeah.
In fact, the ones that they put above ground, they also bury. So, they're pretty well built.
I think
They're up
propane's one of the
to,
safest.
it's probably the safest storage you can get, much better than, I'd rather have that than oil tanks,
oil
that's for
tank,
sure.
yeah.
Yes.
It really is, they're very stout tanks.
If there is any kind of a leak, it's going to be an aerosol. It's going to be airborne, so it's not going to affect the wetlands.
Yeah.
Whereas an oil tank, if it leaked, it would get into the ground.
Okay.
And the placement and approval of above-ground propane tanks would really be within the purview of the site plan review that is done by the planning board and also the building permit process.
And the
So,
fire department.
Well,
And the fire department,
And
of
the fire
course.
department, but it would also be us because it's within the 100.
Right.
yes, but,
So
yes, it would be us
we have
because
to
it's
approve
within.
the activity within the 100.
Yes.
Right.
Fire department's actually gonna be the ones that sign off on the propane storage.
Yep.
So it'll be in where there are trees too.
No, there.
No, that's on the paved area. isn't it?
No, those trees will be gone, and they're going to put in.
Do you have map LA1?
I don't, unfortunately.
I'm gonna bring this up and let this lady look at this. This is the drawing of the trees. Let's put it over here. Anybody else that wants to see it? So you see, this is where the 2 propane tanks are going.
Right.
This is all plantings, this is all grass.
Mhm.
And
Well,
these
that's
are
gonna be
trees that are
grass?
being planted, yes, this is all gonna be grass, this is a slope.
Right, well,
So this is gonna be some grading, and there's trees being planted all around it, so it's gonna look, it'll look nice, but this is where the 2 tanks are going.
This would be the pollinators,
there's
right?
already trees there.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm gonna make a
We're not
revision
taking
when we
any
get
more.
to site plan review.
not taking any
Their
more
peer
out.
review agent always comments in more detail for
Well,
landscape.
there's a slope on the edge.
When we
Yeah.
get a couple meetings with them, I'll revise that landscape plan into something.
They're not
more
Okay.
formal.
So it's going to look a little more natural than just the plugs of grass.
Yeah.
Okay,
I
good.
made one today. I used some smooth rose bushes, some
This is
pines,
Ricketts
some
Pond,
red
okay.
cedars.
Oh, nice.
So,
Okay.
nice.
Very nice, okay.
No, this is the pond here.
This is the-
Right.
That's the drum.
Right, right. So,
To the engineer, is it possible to move everything towards Ricketts Pond Road and keep the 100-foot wetlands barrier?
It's not possible with the setback requirements.
Let me set that requirements from the city.
Even if we got the planning board to agree to forgetting the 4 groupings of trees that you have in the little cul-de-sac.
It's-
65. and this
There's
dotted
there's a
line
front
is the
yard
actual
setback
BBW.
associated with the
This is
buildings.
edge of
They
the
cannot
actual
move closer.
lines. This is
And
the
the rear
65-foot
is
from the
needed
edge
to
of the line.
operate
This is the
a
100 from the edge.
Box
No,
truck.
see what I'm saying,
That's why.
you've got a line of trees here on the side of the road.
Pond.
Yeah.
Why not eliminate that?
And
That
this
will
is the
give you the
drainage.
frontage,
And
and it will
This is
give the
actually-
wetlands 100 feet
this
protection,
drawing.
65
is
to 100
really
feet protection.
not accurate.
This line right
because
here.
This is
a
the slope. that goes
Because
into
you can
this
go to the
space.
street of the building, so we
It's
can't go
not,
any
there's not a
street.
hole here within the
Right.
65, you know what I'm
Even
saying?
if you
So
eliminate that
you
row
can
of
stand
trees,
up on this
you
hill
can't
right
move
there,
everything
beyond
up?
the 65, but that's
The back
because
here
there's a
does not
slope that
matter.
goes
We
down, and
cannot
they have to
go
slope it.
To the street with these
Same as this
buildings
back.
because of the front yard setback, 50 feet in the Spring Street district. So that's what's telling us
The
where
street.
these buildings can go.
The setback here, that's right.
Setback from the trees or from the street?
From the front property line.
Right, but you'd have to,
And that's
you'd have
from your
to
Carver
plan
zoning.
to sign off on it. And then you have a problem with getting in here. These are gonna be commercial.
So there's nothing that you can do
So I mean, you're not gonna
to
bring.
stay
giant tractor
away
trailers.
from
But you're
the
gonna
65
bring- I
feet.
think this guy is a plumbing street versus into right away. Small trucks. and
Yeah,
stuff like
so
that.
this is the
edge of the road.
To still get in and maneuver
The edge of
around.
right away.
They require this much clearance.
So we
because this is
establish.
fire
Okay, so
I have it on.
is
There's
there
lot
a
of stuff that comes
possibility
into play.
that we can have a wall barrier
These are new trees here?
These are new
between
trees.
your
All
industrial
these
park
plants.
and the wetlands that we are gonna protect?
This gives you-
Dorothy Paul at 158 High Street. I did sign in.
I mean, I can look into landscaping more.
Dorothy's on a
By the
permanent
planning
site.
board.
I'm on salary?
You're on a permanent site.
What I'm looking for is like a stone wall between your industrial park and the wetlands, because you're gonna have red foxes, and you're gonna have raccoons, and you're gonna have everything that's been displaced like I have on my back deck.
May I stop you for a minute, please? Because we still seem to have two conversations going on. I'd like to have one at a time.
Just gives you an idea.
All right, so can we just finish with her discussion?
Absolutely.
And then we can, that way, Mr. Germain is involved.
Please.
Especially since we have a smaller group tonight, I just want to make sure everybody hears everything. You won't have to start over.
We good?
All right, you all set? All right, you come on back up.
All I'm requesting is
No, you only
that
get one shot.
No.
you know that little red car out there? I think I might.
It's all right, it's insured.
All I'm looking for is some kind of a safe barrier between the industrial park, like a stone wall, and the wetlands. Because as it is proposed, that
Instead of the
drainage
slope?
pit has a emergency drainage thing, and what is below that area, as you saw today, is what remains of the vernal pool. So I'm requesting that we protect the wetlands as much as possible, the wildlife and the wetlands that are there, with a stone wall separating the industrial site from the wetlands. And he's already said that he can't move everything closer to the main drive
Right.
to keep the 100 feet, which is our wetlands law or whatever. So I'm hoping that we can provide some kind of compromise to protect the area that's left.
Put a wall on the 65.
Well, I think that the planting plan that they've put forth to put in pollinators and different types of trees, red cedar and rose bushes, are going to do a better job of retaining the soil and absorbing moisture than a wall would. If we get enough rain to have water go over a wall, you're going to have a waterfall and you're going to have more erosion than you would with plantings and a gradual slope.
Mr. Chair, I'm looking to protect the wildlife also. So that would be the reason for the wall, is to protect the turtle migration and the raccoons and the red foxes that are going to wander over to the industrial site,
Wouldn't that block?
which will be probably armed with traps and things to keep the rodents and the chipmunks and everything out. So I was thinking that a nice wall as a barrier to the wetlands would protect not only the wetlands, but it would also protect the wildlife. And a point of concern of mine is that emergency drain that exits out of that retaining pool.
Spillway.
Right, yeah,
And it goes
the
right into the vernal pool area. So I'd like the board to, of course, consider what I've said and keep to as much protecting the wildlife and the wetlands as we possibly can, and allow this project to go forward with high consideration for conservation.
All right, well, maybe turtles would be stopped by a wall. None of the other animals would be. They just climb it. As far as the excess water spillway is concerned, we looked at that today, and we noticed how much water was in the retention pond now, which is minimal. I asked the question of one of the gentlemen who was on the site visit this morning, how much water was in there after we had the 7 inches of rain last Labor Day, and he said it was minimal. It was absorbed into the pond, into the ground very, very quickly. So I do not feel that there's, based on what I saw today, that there's going to be hardly any chance of water spilling over.
Yeah, that pond is never gonna, that's
oversized.
never gonna fill up.
We over-designed
It's
that on
oversized,
purpose.
It's huge.
For, planning for the
That thing
future
fills
wells.
up with water, you better go buy a boat.
Right, and also one other thing that I learned today, they have there's going to be a retention pond on the other side of Ricketts Pond Drive, and there is a sluiceway that goes between each one of those to balance the water. So if this one gets high, it's going to feed into the one across the street before it overflows. The pipe that goes between the two is lower than the emergency path of water. So it has another way of getting out of there before it goes over and into the wetlands. So I don't think that, I mean, it's not an invalid concern, but if we have that much water to have that thing overflow, we've got greater problems than the turtles.
Yeah, that's for sure.
So, but I thank you for that. Anybody else? All right, so I'll take a motion to
the hearing
continue
to
this.
the 15th,
50?
June 15th.
June 15th.
Yeah.
We need a DEP number, you're gonna modify.
We should have it by then.
All right, and we're gonna modify this to include a variance?
Yeah, I'm gonna have Eric just maybe submit us a letter to saying, he's requesting a variance. So
Okay.
that
All
will
right.
be filed same.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded to continue the hearing for Lot 3 Ricketts Pond Drive to Wednesday, June 15th.
That work for you, Eric?
Yeah.
All right. Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, it's approved 3-0.
For the 15th.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
We're gonna have to hold off in the minutes because you weren't here and there's only 2 of us.
Right.
So motion to adjourn.
Oh, you can't figure it?
Nope, motion to adjourn.
You can't do it in minutes?
No,
Nope.
because I wasn't here, I can't vote on it.
Oh, you weren't here.
All right,
You do what you
second.
do.
We have a second.
I can look at the minutes.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, we are adjourned. Thank you, Area 58.
Thank you.